طيب. طيب، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Today, bismillah, we'll try to entertain some of the questions with the help of Allah the Mighty and the Most High. Please don't forget to mention your first name and last, or first and last name, city, state, town, province, or at least your first and last initials. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Also, we thank you ahead of time for obeying these rules and regulations, not asking about specific personalities, especially the living, whether there are good personalities, bad personalities, good guys, bad guys, etc. Also, please try your best not to debate and argue in the live chat. The live chat is not a place for debating and arguing. It isn't a forum. It is a place, an opportunity, a service that we try to provide, which will allow Muslims in different countries to ask questions that are important for their deen, and nothing more than that. وَجَزَاكُمُ khairan. Khairan, inshallah. Before we get started, we'll take a fa'idah, inshallah, from one of the most important classical books of the early generations, and it is the book which is known as, or unfortunately, very slept on book. It's known to students of hadith. Hopefully, some students of hadith may be ignorant or unaware of the book, let alone other students, let alone laymen, and it is called Sunan ad-Darimi, rahimahullah ta'ala. Al-Hafidh ad-Darimi, he has a Sunan, and others, they say Musnad ad-Darimi. In most cases, that which is most correct is that his book is a Sunan, whereas it's Mubawwab. He has Abwab, is topically arranged and categorized, like Sunan Abi Dawood, and some scholars called it Musnad because it has the chains of narration. Al-Muhim, ad-Darimi, may Allah have mercy upon him, in the first volume, he speaks on knowledge and the different do's and don'ts of knowledge, the etiquette of knowledge, what the Prophet ﷺ said about knowledge, and he quotes many of the athar of the Sahaba and of the Salaf al-Salih regarding knowledge. From that, he says on page 79 of the first volume of this nuskha, of this copy, it says, أخبرنا عمرو بن عون قال أخبرنا خالد عن عطاء بن السائب عن عبد الله بن ربيعة قال قال سلمان لا يزال الناس بخير ما بقي الأول حتى يتعلم الآخر فإذا هلك الأول قبل أن يتعلم الآخر هلك الناس. With this chain of narration, he quotes Salman saying Inshallah, Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu, لا يزال الناس ولا يزال الناس بخير, is that the people will always be upon khair. Their deen will be good. Their deen will be strong. Their deen will be wholesome, healthy. لا يزال الناس أو لا يزال الناس بخير. The people will always be upon goodness as long as ما بقي الأول, as long as the elders, the predecessors, the old heads, the OGs, the tribal elders, as long as they're around, and as long as they're living and they are alive, حتى يتعلم الآخر, for the purpose of the youngster, next gen, sixth gen, second gen, 2.0, the new generation, the second, third generation, the latter, until they learn from the former. The ummah will be good, the ummah will be strong, as long as the predecessors, the elders, are living, with the opportunity for the younger successors to learn from them, to benefit from them. فَإِذَا هَلَكَ الْأَوَّلُ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَتَعَلَّمَ الْآخِرُ هَلَكَ النَّاسُ. But if and when the older generations, the predecessors go away, they die, before the successors, the younger generations, learn from them, هَلَكَ النَّاسُ, everyone will be ruined. The people won't be upon goodness. There will be much misguidance. People will go astray. So the elder, and even if he's not elder that old, but the one who came first, he who preceded, he has a job and a responsibility of being available, being willing and capable of sharing his knowledge, passing on his knowledge, and not at the expense of the honor and the dignity of the successor. In order for you to learn the knowledge from me, then you must bow down to me, kiss my feet, you must kiss my ring, you must offer me this, you must do this, so on and so forth. You have to humiliate and degrade yourself, put me on a high pedestal just for me to give you some type of knowledge. The knowledge should be available, it should be free, it should be offered for the people. And the successors, the second generation, the third generation, the youngsters, the young bucks, whatever terminology, whatever your culture may be, the younger people, kids, whatever you wish to call them, they have to be willing and capable to learn. And they have to humble themselves and empty their cups and show the necessary respect and exert the necessary diligence to learn. As far as if the predecessors, the older generation, if they're alive without teaching, or the second generation, they aren't interested in learning, however it works, whatever the dynamic is with regards to the connection being broken, it's a short in this cord, it's a short in that cord. The electricity isn't working here, the router isn't working there, the female extension, the male extension, one way or another. The juice, the electricity is not flowing, regardless of whose fault it is, let alone if both cords are messed up. Then we have the result. So from the etiquette of knowledge, from the manners of knowledge, is that those who have the knowledge must make themselves available to teach it. And those who don't have the knowledge, they have to make themselves available to learn it. And that's how the teachings, the sacred knowledge, is passed down, hand to hand, generation to generation. If I'm not doing my job, he's not doing his job, he's not doing his job, but I am vice, then we have the situation in which we're in today. So that's food for thought with regards to the way of the Salaf al-Salih, the way of Ahl al-Hadith, with regards to succession. You cannot be a leader of a group or a faction or masjid or dawah organization and think that you're going to live forever and that you're going to be healthy forever and that you're going to be free forever. Anything can happen to you. You could die, you could be incarcerated, you can get sick. So you have to be willing to give the knowledge now before it's too late. And this is something that we've seen too many times in so many different dawah organizations, masjids, countries, in which a person has not raised 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, whatever the time. A person has failed to recreate himself. He's failed to pass the baton. He's failed to raise, to take someone and to raise them, to nurture them, more than one person, because he's going to go, she's going to go. The successors have to be reared up. They have to be raised and nurtured now, while the first gen is around and the second gen is around. And the knowledge is not sought and benefited from after the person goes away. You can't say, now I want to learn. The ship has sailed. It's too late. You had an opportunity to learn. The first gen, you can't say, well, let me teach. Oh, we need a successor for our community, for our dawah organization, for our state. You're too old. Your knees won't allow that. You can't sit down like that anymore. You can't walk and travel. You've forgotten a lot. So you have to give up the knowledge. You have to learn the knowledge in the moment. Everyone understand this? That's the way of the pious predecessors. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Inshallah, we'll start with the questions now. And as we said last night, and we'll say over and over again, please don't forget our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And please don't forget the enemies of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Make dua for our brothers and sisters and make as much dua as you can against them. We ask Allah to curse them, to shame them, and to humiliate them in this world and in the next. Allahumma ameen. We ask Allah to break their backs and to allow them to fall flat on their faces in this dunya. We ask Allah to see that before we die, inshallah ta'ala. And if not, then we ask Allah to allow them to reach full shame and disgrace and to burn in the fire of hell. Allahumma ameen. For their vicious crimes against our brothers and sisters in al-Islam. And we ask Allah to make us of those who are not cowards, and those who are not scared, and those who are not afraid to speak the truth, even if our physical bodies are too weak to do something impactful, and to make the necessary sacrifices that will make a change by Allah's permission. We ask Allah never ever to take that love out of our hearts for the people of Islam, Ahlul Qibla, the Muslims. We ask Allah never to take out of our hearts the love and the respect for Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, for Quds. Okay, a sacred, holy place in our deen, the first Qibla, the place, the Masjid, the area, that land of so many different prophets and messengers and righteous scholars and righteous mujahideen came from that area. It's a sacred place in our hearts. And we ask Allah never ever to take that love out of our hearts, and the jealousy and the fervor, okay, and the pain. We ask Allah for that never to be removed from our hearts. And we ask Allah to never remove the hatred, okay, from our hearts, from those people, those who are the enemies of Islam and the enemies of our brothers and sisters, and those who have no respect, and nothing but hypocrisy, okay, in their hearts, off of their tongues. And we ask Allah also to shame all of their allies and all of those who collaborate with them and who complacently keep silent about their evil crimes and their double, triple standards, and them playing the victim, the attacked, the one who's suffering from atrocities when they themselves have blood-soaked hands for years. And I cannot repeat this enough. Do not think and do not say that the things started happening on this date or that date or 1948 or the Nakba or this and that. The atrocities in the Holy Lands by the hands of the Zionists are old, very old, before the 20th century. Okay? They increased, they enhanced, they became more, back to back. Okay? Cameras, TV, radio, coverage of their atrocities, but it's not a new thing. All right, Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Allah is greater than all of us. Allah is greater than all of them. They are poor servants. They have no power. They have no might. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And Allah Azza wa Jalla has the ability to support the Muslims and to destroy the kafirin and the fasiqeen and the munafiqeen. Allah is ala kulli shay'in qadir, and that's the dua that we make. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Fadda Hamza.
Ahsan Allahu alaykum, ya Sheikh. What was your journey with the Quran?
My journey with the Quran, there is no such thing as was. is. The Quran is something which is a lifelong journey. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala and others of the past, they were asked, إِلَى مَا يَطْلُبُ الرَّجُلُ الْعِلْمِ إِلَى مَا يَطْلُبُ الرَّجُلُ الْحَدِيثِ. When does a man stop seeking knowledge? Until when? What's the cutoff point? And some of them would say, إِلَى أَن تُصَبَّ الْمِحْبَرَةُ عَلَى قَبْرِهِ. Until his inkwell is poured and dumped on his grave. As if, Allahu Alam, but as if that was a tradition of some of those earlier scholars, to pour the alim's inkwell on his grave. Allahu Alam, that's not proven in the Sunnah, but as if. And if it's a figure of speech, al-muhim, until death. So learning the Quran, reviewing the Quran. If you've memorized the Quran by heart, then you have to review it every day. And if you're reviewing it well, then you read its tafsir. And you've studied its tafsir, you read it again. And you read different books. You read the same information, you go deeper, you get a greater depth, let alone as you grow and you mature. And I can say this from my personal experience, by me growing, okay, and maturing in life, you have a greater value and a greater appreciation for the Quran, and you understand certain things better than what you did 10, 15, 20 years ago from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Medina, okay, I didn't study in the College of Quran, Kulliyatul Quran al-Kareem, okay, but of course, all the colleges have courses in tafsir. And the teachers taught us things, and they showed us things, but your study of tafsir, you reading the books of tafsir and diving in and digging deep, that's ongoing. And that is why you bought those books when you were in Medina. Tabari, Qurtubi, all right? And that's why you read Ibn Kathir over and over again. Wahakadha. Allah ta'ala alam. إذا كان عندك شيء حاد ولا
LA, Birmingham, UK. Can you ask a potential spouse the reason for their previous divorce? May Allah reward you.
Barakallahu feek. The question is, can you ask someone that you're getting to know what was the reason behind them getting divorced if they were previously married? There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good question. That's a solid question. Obviously, you have to weigh the situation, what level of, courting or speaking to or getting to know, acquainted, whatever the case may be, whatever word you want to use, Islamic dating, whatever word you want to use. The process of you getting to know that person, are they good for you or not? Are you good for them, etc.? You have to calculate when to ask that question. In the beginning, later on, how deep you wish to cut. A general answer, or you want the whole story? You want to cross-reference that information. The sister said, well, I got divorced from my ex-husband because, he was abusive, blah, 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 blah. Okay, no problem. And for argument's sake, let's say you speak to the ex-husband. Or you speak to some of her family members or some of her friends or people who know her from her community without her knowing. And say, tell me why sister Khadija got divorced from brother Ahmed. You may find the story to be sound and agreed upon, or you may say, well, she had a nightlife, or she was, whatever the case may be. Allahu Alam.
MJ Saidias, Assalamu alaikum. With the cost of books, Mustafa Jawad Jablawi, and shipping becomes super expensive while online access to Arabic books is becoming easier. How do you see the future of physical books for the students?
Question regarding what is the future concerning physical books for students of knowledge. Books are expensive, shipping is expensive, you need space to store the books, so on and so forth. Online books are cheap, easily accessible, etc., etc., etc. Books, physical books, in my humble opinion, will be eternal, perpetual. As long as people can read, there'll be the need for books. Online books, articles, PDFs, ebooks, different search engines, those things, we benefit from them, no doubt about that. But in my humble opinion, there will always be the need for books. And a Nook or a Kindle or this e-reader, whatever the different types of e-readers that they have, tablets, etc., they're good, they're beneficial. I have countless tablets and e-readers in my pocket. I read them all the time, Kindles and things like this. But nothing, in my humble opinion, will ever take the place of the book. Its feel, its look, its smell, so many things that can never be replaced with a book. That there's no need for electricity. Okay, and then the list goes on. And the proof of that, wallahu alam, is that the books that are old, mad old, are still what? Still around. Now, for everybody, no. Many people don't go to the library, the physical library anymore. You can sit in your home. Many people don't buy books. Books are heavy, books are expensive, etc. But real, true bookworms, readers, true heads, they know what's up. And nothing is like going to the library. Nothing is like having your own library. And subhanAllah, earlier today, I was having some alone time with myself. No, inshallah, hopefully, not too much levitation, too much, khalwa, seclusion, spinning, whatever. Just thinking, I was thinking about Medina. I was, looking through my library, shifting some books, putting some books that just got shipped. And I was thinking about all of the different libraries that I would frequent in Medina. I was thinking about my stomping grounds, my spots. And I said to myself, I remember vividly, okay, my personal library, okay? And then there was the library in HadithDisciple, the College of Hadith, that I would make it my business to visit daily. And we would have a 15-minute break, like a brunch or a breakfast break. Different students would go out, buy sandwiches, tea, blah, 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 blah. And I would try, I'm not praising myself, I'm just being honest, I would make it my business to lock myself in the library for those 15 minutes and read fawaid, especially from Majmu' Fatawa of Sheikh Islam Taymiyyah. And then other periods when we had like a whole break, like a whole class, like 45 minutes or an hour, I would go to the library. Okay, and then in Medina, you had the Grand Library, Maktabatul Amma, the big library. I would go there after school, after Salatul Dhuhr. And one of the benefits of the Grand Library is that it was, in most cases, it was empty. Kulliyat Hadith was full of people. The teachers, the professors. You had brothers debating their research papers, magister, doctors, master's program. You had different people doing projects for Kulliyat Hadith, etc. You always run into people. But the library, the big Grand Library, was always secluded. And I remember like yesterday, it was full of sakina. You could hear a pin drop on the floor. And you had the whole big, gigantic, fat library to yourself. To roam around, walk around. And I remember there, and if I'm not mistaken, there were other parts of Saudi, such as Riyadh, I think Jamiatul Imam, in which you could pay for a desk. You could rent a desk. So you rent out a desk, you pay a small monthly fee, and you keep all your books there that you don't have to put them back or worry about the librarian putting your books back. So just imagine that. You pay a small fee, every day of the week you go in there, you have a personal workspace in this big, gigantic library. Dream come true. So you being away from the computer screens, the people, the text messages, the notifications, TikTok, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. You sit in surrounding yourself by books. So I had my personal library, the Kulliyat Hadith library, the Jamia library, and I remember I would go to different colleges intentionally. I would trespass. I would go to the College of Quran, their library. I would go to the College of Lugha and just, peruse around and benefit, let alone the bookstores. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ's masjid's library. It was on the second floor. You go up the escalator, whether it was before the class, after the class, or different times in which I was in the master's program, in which my class was my research, whatever the case may be, and just sit there and benefit and study. So, and there are other bookstores and other libraries as well. So I don't think books will ever become obsolete. Always having the need to carry all of them, different story. But I don't think it will ever become obsolete. And there's nothing, the feel of the book. Wallahu a'lam.
F.A. Ontario, have you read all the books or most of the books behind you? Allahu Akbar.
Have I read all of the books or most of the books behind me? I said before, and I'll say it again.
You said yes, it's cap.
There's no cap. And the easiest way of having no cap is saying, I've read but a few books in my lifetime. That's real rap. The more you learn, the more you realize how ignorant you are. And the more you study, the more you realize how there are people who are more devoted than you are, that are really about their life. People that don't have a sense of humor, social life, whatever word, geek, nerd, whatever term you want to use, thick bottle cap glasses, read books all day long. And it makes your little puny studies look like what? Nothing. All right? The books behind me to honestly answer. Well, I can't honestly answer the question. All right? Because you're going to say it's cap. And if it ain't cap, I incriminate myself. He's praising himself. Oh, he sits and drinks tea. Blah, 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 blah. What's important is, as we've stated before, whenever you get a book, try to make sure that you've read the introduction to the book, the index of the book, and peruse through the book. So, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, if I put on a blindfold, if we play, Russian roulette, and say, Mufti, just pick a book, grab a book. Inshallah, maybe one day we'll do this. Blindfold. Just grab a book, open it up, explain. Who's the author of the book? When was it written? When did you buy it? So on and so forth. I think, and I'm not bragging, but I think I feel confidently that I would what? Be able to. And probably tell you the story of where I got the book when I bought it. Okay? And that's not a praise. I'm just saying you got to be familiar with your stuff, with your tools. All right? Wallahu a'lam.
DB Dublin, Ireland. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. What distinguish Sahih, Mutawir,
Mutawatir. I guess mutawatir.
Mutawatir, and Mutafaqin? Ali al-Hadith from one author. Jazakallah khair.
I don't understand the question. Maybe it's not mutawatir. Can they repeat it or maybe read it? I don't.
DB Dublin, Ireland. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. What
Dublin?
distinguish Dublin, Ireland. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. What distinguish Sahih, Mutawatir, and Mutawaffiq? Muttafaqun alayh.
Okay.
So, hadith from one another.
طيب. First and foremost, the question is what distinguishes mutawatir from muttafaq alayh? We have to understand a few things without getting too technical, too far down the rabbit hole. The term mutawatir is an alien, it's a foreign term to the people of hadith. You may have found some scholars mentioning it here or there, such as Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. But with all the love and respect for Shafi'i being from Ahl al-Hadith, he's far more renowned, more known for his fiqh and dealing with fiqh. So the term mutawatir isn't a terminology of Bukhari or Ahmed or Ibn al-Madini or Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Wara or Darimi or Ibn Khuzaymah. That's not from their terminology. The term mutawatir, the term, let alone much of its concepts, come from the people of fiqh, the people of kalam, the rhetoric, the mutakallimin, the people of usul. So that's first and foremost. Secondly is, there are some hadiths which are called mutawatir, which are agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, many. And there's some ahadith, which are Bukhari and Muslim, which are ahad. Then obviously it's a very long discussion concerning mutawatir and ahad in aqidah, the different groups, the mutakallimin and those who are influenced by them, whatever name or title they give themselves or given to them, Ash'ari, Maturidi, whatever it is, okay, whatever the group may be. This hadith is mutawatir, it's reported by mass narrators, so yufidul ilm al-yaqini, okay, ad-dururi, so on and so forth. That's a long discussion. And then concerning the fiqh and the rulings. So we have the aqidah issues of mutawatir hadith versus ahad. And then in the fiqh rulings, an example of this, just an example, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala would give precedence to the mutawatir hadith over the ahad hadith. He wouldn't take the ahad hadith unless it was blah blah, etc., etc., etc. It's fiqh discussions. And that's just an example. That is not an explanation of Abu Hanifa's methodology. It's just an example. Okay? Alright, so those words and terms come with concepts. And the last thing I will say, without opening too much of a can of worms, is that the whole entire mutawatir thing is problematic from beginning to end. We say in our language, from the rooter to the tutor, from beginning to end. The whole mutawatir thing, its definition, its categories, blah, blah, is mushkil. And one of the reasons why it's so mushkil is that it's not from the way of the people of hadith. Now, one may say, well, it's just a word. Mashhur, mustafid, call it whatever you want to call it. But it's not just a term. It comes with implications. That's all I'll say. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
AS London, UK. What is most effective way of revising the Quran that I've forgotten?
First and foremost, you got to make tawbah. Questions regarding what's the most effective way of revising the Quran that I've forgotten. You got to make tawbah. And that's why some of the Salaf, many of the Salaf, they considered forgetting the Quran to be a major sin. A grave sin. And some of them said that it's impossible for a Muslim to forget the Quran, or if you say, unsitu, I've been caused to forget the Quran, except because of a sin. And except because of ignoring and neglecting the Quran and abandoning it. All right? So that's a scary situation by itself. So make tawbah. And then I would say, start off with momentum and rhythm. Keep making review of what you still know by heart, and you gradually work your way up. And try not to go back to the cause of you forgetting that. Waliyadu billah. May Allah help us all.
And MA Bronx NY, what your thoughts on what's going on in Israel, Palestine? Should the Muslim countries wage war, or what do you think?
What do I think? What I think is clear. However, let's take it from a different perspective now. I don't think anything about the war in Israel or Palestine, whatever, I don't think anything, because I'm fed information. I think, I feel, and I believe what comes on CNN, BBC, MS, NBC, Sky, whatever, as a 9 to 5, sheep, a part of the herd. The kuffar, the mushrikun, the munafiqun, the three-faced hypocrites, they don't have two faces, three. That's the minimum. They tell me what to think and feel through the things that they show me and the things that they don't show me. And the things that they do show me, of course, is filtered and it's twisted and mangled and warped. 9 out of 10 news outlets or outlets, different, whatever, 9 out of 10 are agenda-fied. And let's be honest, let's speak the truth. And people who came before me have said this, and it's a fact. There's no hidden anti-Semitism, the power and the control. And this is also very important with regards to the history of Palestine and how it was lost and taken. The power and the control on all levels, the lobbyists, the politicians, every box. So if someone owns the TV network, the news outlet, what do you think they're going to tell you about what's going on in Palestine? I mean, what do you think they're going to report and tell you the thing? Of course, they're going to tell you what they want you to believe. And when they do say something that's counter or against, it's worded, it's placed in such a delicate way. And a simple example of this is 1,400 Israelis were killed, massacred. Over 9,000 Palestinians died. And there's a huge difference between the two. Now, what is the question? Should the Muslim Arab countries? No, we shouldn't do anything. Of course not. Sit back and just watch our brothers and sisters, get massacred, slaughtered. Allahu alam how long it will be until it's 10,000. That's what we know. That's not counting the people that are missing under the rubble. Okay? But the mainstream scene, whatever, there's over 9,000, la ilaha illallah. 9,000 Muslims gone in less than a month. Countless wounded. Over 20,000, 30,000 people wounded, missing legs, missing arms, burnt by white phosphorus, etc. Shrapnel, glass, metal, and just like that. Of course, we just sit back and, drink our tea. Enjoy our comfortable lives. Keep paying taxes. Keep funding and supporting those bombs to be dropped upon masjids and refugee camps and so on and so forth. That's the situation in which we're in. And it makes you want to cry, literally. It breaks your heart when you see that stuff. At the end of the day, the words that are played, that are used, killed versus died, terrorists is a key word, 9/11, Holocaust, okay? All of these words, when they do talk about what's happening, they're controlling your thoughts. They're telling you what they want you to hear and how they want you to think and feel and your perception of the war. 130 terrorists were killed. Really? How about 130 civilians? And how do you know who's there under the tunnels? Who's hiding in the hospital? How do you know? How is your intelligence with that surgical precision? Yet and still, you didn't have the surgical precision to know of that imminent attack that killed and massacred over 1,400 innocent Israelis. How did you not know this? This is a serious hardliner question. How were those savage, barbaric terrorists allowed to breach the border, break into homes, rape all of those women, behead all of those babies, burn people alive, cut women's stomachs open, and just go around blowing up people at a music fest for peace without it does not make sense. It's unreal. This is a phone conversation of Islamic Jihad when they blew up the hospital by accident. And we have it. Allahu Akbar. The technology, surgical precision, tapped into phones. Where are the hostages? How many are there? What is their condition? You don't have, where's that information at? And how did you get caught sleeping? How was that possible? 1,400 innocent Jews massacred by barbaric Hamas terrorists. How did that happen? And these questions are unanswered questions with regards to our country on 9/11. How did you allow a bunch of ragtag Bedouin Arabs to hijack these planes and attack the Pentagon? How did that happen? With the top-notch security and intelligence, CIA, how did that take place? It just doesn't add up. It's not making sense. So the news is going to tell you what it wants you to hear, except for a few outlets that are presenting and showing you the reality of what's on the ground, some of the reality. So the moral of the story is to be careful of what you listen to, what you watch, and what you believe. And we all know the famous quote of Malcolm X, may Allah have mercy upon him: the newspapers will have you feeling and thinking that the attackers, the aggressors, are the victims. And we know this is the ace of spade and that deck of cards. The ace of spade. We killed 9,000 people out of self-defense. We're struggling for our survival. And this is the worst atrocity since the Holocaust, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the world, the leaders, our leaders, they sit back and they say nothing. And they agree with those lies. And every now and then, Allah knows best, my personal opinion, whatever you say about these different people, these different leaders, whether you believe that they are reptilians, whether you believe that they're jinn, whether you believe that they're robots, whether you believe that they're already dead and a jinn in their body, whatever you believe about them, whatever it is, shayateen, whatever it is, every now and then you'll see some of them speak and you'll see some type of humanity in them every now and then. There's a glitch in the system. I don't mention names. How the president talks, and you look at how this Secretary of State, it's a difference. Even if it's acting, but you'll see. But you know that they can't go but so far, because that would displease the people who pull their strings. So our president says, I advise that there will be a pause in hostility. What the heck does that mean? Not a ceasefire, but a pause. Just put it on pause. Put the killing on pause. Then when the hostages are released safe and sound, just unpause the tape. That's the leader of our country speaking like this. How much money is being sent over there? How many poor Americans are there? Don't talk about Islam and Muslims, but how many poor Americans? How many Americans work like dogs to pay the rent, to pay their mortgage, to send their kids to school? How many public schools are shut down? How much crime and poverty and prostitution? How much need is there here in America, in every single city and state? And yet and still you're willing to send all of that money over there. So where do you begin? Is the point that I'm trying to get to. Where do you begin? And the Muslim countries, Arab countries, whatever you wish to call them, Islamic countries, where do you begin? Where do you start? Where do you start? With their silence? With them threatening the Houthi rebels, the Shiites, the Iran? You can threaten them, but you have no courage to threaten Israel, who's massacring your people and your brothers. You don't have the guts to say anything to them, but you threaten them. Where do you start? With the people making excuses, with the deafening silence, like it's normal. Where do you start? We want to normalize our relationship with Israel after everything's, where do you start? Where do you begin? So, Yani, beware of what you see and what you hear. You have to do your independent research. All news and media outlets aren't biased. That's a fact. And there are people who are woke, and there are people who are conscious, and there are people who aren't afraid and who aren't scared to speak the truth and to call a spade a spade. There are many people, but those people are the vast minority, or they're powerless, or they're going to be ostracized as being weirdos, conspiracy theorists, anti-Semites, extremists, terrorists, sympathizers, blah, 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 blah. And they know this. They know that they have a stranglehold on the media. They have a stranglehold on the statistics and numbers. And they have a stranglehold on the people's emotions. So where do you start? Allahumma musta'an. But as we've said before, the Muslim is not to lose hope. And the Muslim has to do something. Something. If you can't do it, you got to do something. You got to say something. You got to feel something. But you can't just act like it's okay and it's normal. It's not all right. It's not okay. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Next question.
BANJ Orange. Do you have to cut a baby girl hair when they are born?
Questions regarding a baby girl's head. Should it be shaved when she is born? Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Some scholars say that the Prophet ﷺ used the word ghulam, a boy, but it's general for both sexes. So the baby girl's head should be shaven. And then other scholars, they say it's only for the boy. The prohibition of a woman shaving her head, that's when she's grown. Imitating a man, she's a baby. So the safest thing to do, wallahu ta'ala, shave the head, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam, even for a baby girl. It's the safest thing to do.
Barakallahu feek. BM Ajax, Ontario. When it comes to Ahl al-Sabr, ties of kingship, who are considered your relatives, and are the relatives only from your blood relatives?
Your kin and your kith, those who are related to you, mahram or not, heirs or not, but you're related to that person, then there is something shared between you. And even someone, mathalan, a family friend as well. It was not an actual mahram or blood relative. If they're close to the family, you're supposed to keep relations with them as well. Let alone your tribe and your clan. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And the last thing I will say, to show you the nature of the control and the brainwash, or whatever you want to call it, mind control, reptilian, whatever you want to say. There's all types of theories out there. The craziest thing is that you'll see people on the news saying what they're saying, and they come from countries and backgrounds that were raped, plundered, murdered, starved to death by the very people that they're defending and sucking up to and kissing up to. You're this anchor, you're from India. Have you forgotten about all of the famines that were intentionally fabricated and caused by the British government? Did you forget that? Did you forget how the British caused how many millions of Indians to starve to death because of them taking all of the farmland to plant opium and tea? Did you forget that? Have you forgotten that? Let alone if you're American, if you're black, have you forgotten? The people that you're defending and the people that you're calling terrorists, have you forgotten that? Are you that dumb and blind? Have you forgotten how your people were ran through? So it's unbelievable, literally. La ilaha illallah, it's unbelievable. Fadal.
AA London. Is riba Allah talks about in the Quran the same as what the banks do when you get a mortgage, as riba is so severe, and I do not feel like this can be applied to mortgages?
Jazakallah khairan for sharing your opinion. Thank you very much. May Allah bless you and bless your cup. I mean, what's important is we have done a full explanatory workshop series of lectures on traditional mortgages. You can find it on HadithDiscipleshop.com, whether you get that lecture or whether you sign up for our HD VIP, exclusive content, in which we explain the dynamics of traditional mortgages, what's right, what's wrong, etc. As far as a person says, I don't feel that interest is riba, okay, ad'afan muda'afa, so on and so forth, then that's a longer discussion. But who's willing to roll the dice with their soul? Who's foolish enough to blow on the dice, of course, and cool breeze? Who's willing to play craps or CeeLo with their soul? So fixed interest rates, APR, whatever this percentage, it's not the riba that Allah is mentioning in the Quran. It is not gross riba. It's not usury. Maybe, mumkin. But are you willing to roll the dice with your soul for a house or a car? Allah musta'an.
That's why Columbus, Ohio, is it permissible to have life insurance?
Insurance, like the mortgage, the traditional mortgages, it could be a necessity. If it's a necessity, then we know there are rulings for necessities. And if it even if it isn't a necessity, if it's a severe need, there are rulings for that as well. So car insurance, many people are very hypocritical when it comes to insurance. They'll allow car insurance, but they say business insurance is haram. Life insurance is haram, but you pay Geico or State Farm or Allstate or Liberty, Liberty, right? Or the little gecko, the lizard that's talking, offering you a cup of coffee, right? What's the other one? The one with the ostrich or the emu, right?
Auto.
No. Who are they? You know what I'm talking about, man. The commercials. The guy with the mustache. He says you don't even have a mustache. You get the point I'm trying to make. Just like a good neighbor, what? What heck of that? Progressive. All of that is good and fine. You pay all of them every month for a car, but they tell a brother he can't have insurance on his business or insurance on it. So who picks and chooses what's a necessity? So stay away from these types of insurance if you can. And if you can't, if it's a need, if it's a necessity, and Allah knows you're trying to be sincere, you're trying to be honest, do what you have to do based off of need and necessity. Whether it's life insurance, business insurance, driver's insurance, so on and so forth. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
I.e. from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. What is the ruling on wudu being broken due to an old age incontinence? Must it always be remain?
If a person has a problem with keeping wudu, it's a very simple solution, inshallah ta'ala. When it's time to pray, after the adhan, when it's time for dhuhr, you're going to make your perfect wudu. And let's say you break your wudu 2 minutes later, continue to pray. You make your dhuhr, you make any nafila, sunnah prayers within that time, and when asr comes in, you refresh your wudu. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
I'm Pennsylvania. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mufti, Allah Mubarak. What's the ruling on cutting the unibrow?
Cutting the unibrow. If the unibrow is unsightly, if it's abnormal, you cut it. If it's normal, your race or your sex or your gender, you come from men have, hairy eyebrows, bismillah, you don't cut it because it's normal. But if it's unsightly and abnormal, then that's a different story. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
UH Long Island, NY. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. May Allah bless you. I'm confused when Allah says in Surah Baqarah that the Jews, Christians, ila akhirih, who believed in Allah and the last day will be Jannah, but at the same time Allah says that all the prophets were Muslims.
Tayyib. Very simple answer, inshallah. When Allah mentions Jews, Christians, Sabi'een, so on and so forth, I thought all of the prophets were messengers. All of the prophets and the prophets and messengers were Muslims for sure. And their message was al-Islam. The specifics of Muhammad's legislature, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the specifics of his deen, of his way, is a different story. But they all of them came with the same message. And many people discuss with regards to the Sabi'een or the Sabi'un or the Majus, the Zoroastrians. Many scholars debate on who they were and how Zoroastrianism was a monotheistic religion, and that some say that Zoroaster was a prophet, and then he came with Tawheed, etc., etc. So there's detail. The Jews and Christians who followed the true way of Musa and Isa, and they died before the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad, or they didn't know about it for argument's sake, etc., etc. As far as one who knows about Islam, calls himself a Jew or Christian or Zoroastrian, etc., then obviously they only have one destination. May Allah help us.
Assalamu alaikum Rashid from Maryland, USA. What are good books for starting al-jarh wa ta'deel / ilm al-rijal?
Al-jarh wa ta'deel ilm al-rijal. If you've already taken the necessary sciences before that of ilm al-hadith, al-mustalah, al-fiqh al-sunnah, your Arabic is good, is strong, you're a serious student of knowledge, then I would advise you with taking the curriculum of Kulliyat al-Hadith. And from that is the Dawabit al-Jarh wa Ta'deel. Okay? That was, I don't know if it is now, but when I was studying there, that was the curriculum. Okay? Of Sheikh Abdulaziz Abdul Latif, rahimahullah ta'ala. Dawabit al-Jarh wa Ta'deel is an excellent source. Also, Ilm al-Rijal, Sheikh Matar al-Zahrani, rahimahullah ta'ala. That's a part of the curriculum. You actually have a course which is called Madatul Ruwat, narrators, before you actually study Jarh wa Ta'deel in the second year. As far as now, I don't know what they're studying. Allahu A'lam, things have changed dramatically. I don't know. But when I was there, okay, the first year versus the second year, so those are two excellent sources. And if you have any connections with brothers who have been in Medina, maybe you can get their notes for those books, because the books don't give you everything. And then inshallah ta'ala, if you have a teacher, you can read those books to him. And if you don't, if you have to teach yourself, then read those books over and over again and practice some of the exercises. Last piece of advice with regards to a beginner concerning ilm al-jarh wa ta'deel or ilm al-rijal is reading the introduction of kutub al-rijal. So you have al-kashif by al-dhahabi, rahimahullah ta'ala. Okay? Al-kashif speaks on the narrators of the 6 other books of hadith before taqrib al-tahdib, al-kashif. And mizan al-i'tidal as well. Lalon Tahdhib wa Tahdhib, so on and so forth. So read the introduction to those 2 books, Mizan al-I'tidal and Al-Kashif, along with reading through those books. You'll find so much practice along with the theory, let alone reading through the books and taking the exercise. Imam al-Bukhari says, مثلا حدثنا Umayyah ibn Bistam. Who's Umayyah ibn Bistam? You go back to Al-Kashif, you go back to Taqrib, you read about him, where's he from, so on and so forth. And then you go back to Tahdhib al-Tahdhib. And you compare with Dhahabi's ruling and Hafid bin Hajar's ruling. Why can that? You have to practice with the theory. Wallahu ta'ala alam. That's in brief, taban.
YA Birmingham, UK. Salam alaikum Mufti. When you were studying the Deen, were there specific scholars that you used to study and stick to, or did you look at many different scholars who were upon Manhaj Salafiyah?
Jazakallah khairan. Once again, may Allah Azza wa Jal bless your cup and allow it to be perpetually empty. Ameen. Okay? All of our cups to remain empty. As long as we're alive, studying and learning, may Allah allow us to have empty cups. Empty that what?
Cup.
Empty the cup, bro. Like, al-muhim. At the end of the day, this will be our last question tonight. When I was in Medina, and once again, the philosophy, purity of philosophy, POP. There is no when I was studying. I'm still studying to this day. There isn't a thing you graduate and you're done. You continue to study from the cradle to the grave. All right, that's the way of the disciple. Number 2, specifically when I was in Medina, blah, 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 many years ago when I was a fuzzy, bushy bird, coming out the nest, etc., etc., etc. All right? Did I stick to main scholars? Did I study with other scholars? It's a yes or no answer. Of course, I had main shuyukh or main sheikh, main teachers that I studied with for years. Different books, different curriculums, different things. Asked questions over and over again, learned their style. But at the same time, I always would diversify my style and mix up my style and never ever to become stagnated and frozen in one way, build and create your own by Allah's permission, right? That's from the way of the disciple. All right? Research your own. Research yourself, right? Retain what is useful. Discard that which is unuseful, and ultimately create your own. That's what the great philosopher Bruce Lee said. And those were some of the last words that my late father, may Allah have mercy upon him, shared with me shortly before he died. He shared me with that gem. Research yourself. Keep what's good. Do away with that which doesn't make sense or is weak, and make your own style. So you have to stick with one sheikh. You have to have one main sheikh for sure. Okay, but at the same time, you have to take bits and pieces, different things on the side, and ultimately create your own. All right? Wallahu ta'ala alam. And the Salaf Salih, of course, we know that they would say, إذا أردت أن تعرف ختم أو خطأ معلمك فجالس غيره. If and when you want to know the mistakes of your teacher, and if not mistakes, then at least the shortcomings of your teacher, sit with somebody else. So you always have to learn, soak up, be a learner, empty your cup, devote yourself, but at the same time, you gotta sponge things from other sources as well. Wallahu ta'ala alam. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وجزاكم الله خيرا.